Hello, everyone. I'm
Hello.
very happy to start our online seminar, Meet the Blockchain VC. We have been able to bring in some very interesting people and interesting projects. We have some angel investing, we have some coin investors, we have some established investors which came from big corporates, and we have also mixed from the different regions, iAngels from Tel Aviv, Lavaliere from Florida, USA, and Blockchain Valley Ventures from Switzerland. I'm very happy that we are able to bring in different aspects and different people to our online event. And I think it's important that Crypto Valley Association, which understands itself also as a player which is independent from geographical location, that will bring in all these different people. We're very happy that they share some interesting learnings with us. I'd like to start and introduce Agada Nameri from iAngels from Tel Aviv. Very interesting company, and I think also very interesting if we look at the team of your company. Out of the 12 team members we have on your website, you have 9 female founders. So this is a very interesting and quite unique aspect. Maybe just give us a little intro. How was this possible that you're so female in your company?
Sure. Happy to do that. So iAngels was founded 7 years ago by two female founders, Shelly Hod Moyal, who comes from a financial background and was an investment banker for many years, both in New York and Israel, and Mo Asya, who comes from a technological background and went to the 8200 intelligence unit in the Israeli army, and then worked at companies like IBM and SAP and Amdocs. And they actually met in New York during Mo's MBA, and Shelly was working there at the time. And they had this vision of, knowing a lot of Israeli entrepreneurs and their struggle in raising capital and the time that they spend on it and so on. And on the other hand, knowing, the investment side and the investor side and the corporate side of things, to kind of bridge the gap and help founders raise money from angel investors, and even at later stages, more in a more structured way. And on the other hand, allow investors from all over the world to participate in what is going on in the Israeli tech ecosystem, which is very exciting and very dynamic. And usually, if you don't have feet on the ground and you're not a professional VC and you want to participate, it's pretty hard to kind of figure out what the good deals are and what the good companies are, and get into the most sought after financing rounds. So this was kind of the idea, and I mean, there wasn't an agenda of hiring only women, but it came to be. I'm a partner at iAngels. I joined almost 5 years ago. Most of the people that I hired are women. Not only, we're not prejudiced or anything, but it's really not a specific agenda, but we do like to promote women, and we think it's important, and we want to empower, and we want to set precedents and be an example of a successful operation that is led by women and dominated by women.
Yes, so I mean, you have iAngels, and I saw also another company, 21M Capital, which is
Right.
partly focused on blockchain technology. So please explain us, why do you invest in
Sure.
blockchain technology? And where do
Okay.
you
So
see its biggest
yeah,
potential also?
sure. So as I mentioned, iAngels was founded 7 years ago, and we invest primarily in Israeli tech within iAngels. But the one thing that leads us throughout our investments and throughout since we were founded, was that we like to invest in innovations that are or industries that are early on the innovation curve. Blue oceans, new innovation, new disruption to markets, new markets that are being created. And we came across blockchain technology pretty early on, around 2014. We made an investment in a company called Simplex, which does fraud prevention for crypto and blockchain, and also in eToro. And that's how we became familiar with the industry, with blockchain, with the technology, and we basically fell in love. I mean, with the ideology behind it, with how disruptive it is, with the potential of it in various industries, not just the financial industry. And so we started investing pretty early on in 2016. And then we established 21M, which is dedicated, as you mentioned, to blockchain investment. And we have an actively managed fund, Juno, that does the same. What we like about blockchain and what we think, the potential, blockchain is an enabling technology. So we need to talk about it as a technology rather than an industry in it of its own, because it's applicable to many different industries. And I think that's what's interesting about it. If you look at, the lowest hanging fruits, which is, the fintech industry or the financial industry, it has massive potential to disrupt, to change people's lives, across the board, but primarily everything to do with access to financial capital and to financial markets, to people that currently don't have access, serving the underbanked and the unbanked, inclusion in that respect. So it has massive potential in those areas, but also in different areas, in everything to do with governance, with how decisions are being made within organizations or within communities. So it's endless. From where I'm sitting, I think it's endless, and we just see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Then now my question: if you invest in these blockchain projects, do you invest in new protocols, in infrastructure projects, or also in applications?
So up until now, we invested primarily in protocols, new consensus protocols or innovative consensus protocols, like companies like SpaceMesh and others. We do also invest in infrastructure or anything that has to do with enabling this technology to actually be adopted. So we made a few investments in those types of things. Liquidity. We invested in a cybersecurity company that provides a hyper secure solution for custody, company called GK8. And so a lot of things that still need to be in place or to be developed for this to actually take off, and for applications to be adopted and applicable and used. But as we advance, it's been a few years since we've started investing, and as time goes by, we see more and more value, potential value in applications. So we see the entire world of DeFi, which is now taking advantage of everything that has been built so far. These are definitely applications, exchanges and decentralized exchanges. These are just kind of initial applications of this technology. So primarily, going back to your question, blockchain protocols and infrastructure, but just it's a matter of time until we invest in applications. It just needs to be the right time for it.
And do you invest in equity, or do you also invest in tokens?
We invest in both. And we also invest in hybrid models. So for instance, as I mentioned, SpaceMesh was a hybrid model where we invested in the equity, but at the end of the day, they're developing a decentralized protocol. And by the time that they launch the protocol, the value is already in the network and not in the equity of the company. So it was a hybrid model. We tend to invest in equity in companies that, like GK8, for instance, companies that are doing infrastructure or enabling technologies where the token would not make sense. And basically, when investing in tokens, we would need to see a very strong token economics or a model that justifies a token.
May you tell us how much you have invested so far?
We invested tens of millions of dollars already in blockchain technologies and other enabling technologies.
Who is typically your investor? Is it a private person? Is it an institution?
Most of our investors are private investors or semi-institutional investors, family offices, high net worth individuals. We only service accredited investors. And basically, the vision for us when we just started investing, given the fact that we already had iAngels, which is an investment platform, and the VC, we knew the type of investors that are looking for our added value in this, and most of them we needed to bridge the gap for them between this new world that is being developed and what they are used to, and which they invest in VC with us, but that was already a jump from what their comfort zone is. So we needed to be very focused on how we're going to bring them to this world and how we do the asset allocation in this asset class, or between our VC and this asset class, in a way that suits their appetite and their risk appetite and so on.
So how big is your typical ticket size if you invest into a company or a project?
It really depends. It really depends if it's an equity investment, and equity investments we usually do in Israeli companies, where we can sit on the board and have rights as a shareholder. So it varies, and it also varies from where we invest. We have various pockets. We have our iAngels platform, which is an online investment platform where investors can pick and choose their own deals. We have 21M, which is a similar platform that focuses on blockchain, and we have Juno Capital, which is an actively managed fund. So it depends from which pocket we're investing and the type of the company and the type of the deal. We would feel more comfortable making significant equity investments in companies that are based in Israel. With token investments, it really depends if it's already liquid or if it's expected to be liquid. When we just invested, it was all, or most of it was ICOs, with a lot of risk on in its structure. And so we take into consideration all of these factors.
So another question is, do you also act as a lead investor? Are you mostly a lead investor, or do you prefer co-investing?
We're not, it's not very important for us to lead, if the company already has a lead, we're happy to join. If we met the company at the time that it didn't have a lead and we're bullish about it, we're happy to lead and help them close the round. So we do both.
So another question, how do startups usually find you? I mean, do you work to get approached? I've seen on your website you have a section where startups can approach you, or do you prospect yourself?
We do both. We have on our platform, startups can submit their application, and they go through our process if they do so, and we meet them and talk to them if it's relevant, and they kind of go within our process. But honestly speaking, most of the deals that we've done so far in the 7 years of iAngels were deals that we ran after. So companies that we identified through top-down analysis or bottom-up analysis, and companies that we got introduced to the founders, or we met the founders and thought they were interesting, or we did research on an industry and decided that we want want to invest in the industry. And so we mapped out all of the relevant startups in the industry and kind of reached out and built relationship even before they were raising rounds. So yeah, so both, but mostly outbound.
Thank you. Interesting. Can you tell us something about your due diligence process?
Sure. We have a very structured and kind of rigorous, let's say, due diligence process. Very similar to our VC investments in iAngels. It's not very different when you look at blockchain. We obviously meet the team numerous times. We do our own market research. We look at the tech. We consult with tech experts if needed. We do reference checks, backdoor reference checks. We believe the team is one of the most important things. Obviously, there needs to be a market and there needs to be a product that makes sense, but the team is probably one of the most important things when you invest. So we have developed a leadership assessment questionnaire, let's call it, with a business psychologist in New York that helps us kind of identify or figure out what kind of qualities there are around the founding team and how they, how they compensate for each other's maybe deficiencies, or how they help each other. And that's very helpful. It's not like a test, but it gives us insight as to how they might work together and where they might be challenged in the future. And then, if it's a blockchain investment or a token investment, then you have to look at what you're investing in. Whether it's equity, then you have to make sure that the company, would have equity value at the end, generate revenues, have a business model, and so on. Or if it's a token, then you have to make sure that the company actually needs a token, because there was quite of a hype back in 2017 where a lot of companies issued token, but there was no real justification for it. So figuring out that there is a justification for the token and that there is some model behind the economics of the token, and that it makes sense.
Okay. Now you told a lot about Israel, and I mean that you were close there. Now, I ask myself, do you also invest abroad? Do you invest in Europe? Did you also already make some investments even here in Switzerland?
So we in iAngels we invest in Israel. When we started our branch, 21M Capital, that invests in blockchain, we decided to expand the region for our investment, or the mandate. And so in blockchain, we invest outside of Israel as well. Equity investments would be mostly in Israel, but token investments can be also outside of Israel. We invested over the years all over the world, in Korea, in Israel, in the US, in Switzerland, in various places around the world. Yeah.
So tell us a bit. I mean, we're running out of time, so I go a bit quicker.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask you, maybe give me some key elements. What are you looking for if you choose a team or a company you invest in, team-wise, but also product-wise? What's you're focusing on?
Well, team-wise, I think it's like in any startup, so I don't have to say too much about that. You look for strong teams that get along well together, that compensate for one another, and that have proven execution capabilities. In terms of product, we look for a technological moat and innovation in a market that is ripe for innovation, and that that can easily, or not easily, but be adopted in a relevant time frame.
Can you share a story, or maybe two stories, the best investments or the baddest investments, and maybe some findings, some learnings you've got out of it?
Well, best investments, most of them they still have to prove. And so proof is in the pudding. So we'll wait with that. I can share that one of our earliest bets, one of our earliest investments was into Binance, which has proven to be quite a good investment over the years. And that goes into what I was saying before. Very strong team, execution, impeccable almost. Very innovative in a market that was ripe for innovation, with a product that was easy to use for the consumer, and so that's how they managed to become the biggest and the best in what they do. So definitely one of my strongest convictions from quite early on. As to bad investments, I assume everybody had some bad investments. I can't really, talk about one specific one, but I can say that when you have when the founders don't understand the market well enough, even if they're and all of the people that we invested in are geniuses, but sometimes it's not enough, and you need to also understand the market and where it's going and the dynamics. And we made investments that were in brilliant teams that were building something that was too early for the market, for instance, and they would have needed a lot of capital before it actually became relevant, and that was hard in the market atmosphere that came about in 2018 and 2019.
Thank you, Agada. That was really great. I think you had a very enthusiastic way of explaining what you're doing, and it was very interesting. And we see, you really deep dove for years. And I think, if you mention investments also as eToro or Binance and so on, I think you're on the lucky side. And all congratulations. Maybe one last question to you.
Sure.
Do you know Crypto Valley here in Zug in Switzerland? Have you ever been?
I haven't been yet. We had a while back two of my analysts were from Zurich, so they knew you guys very well, and we've been in touch for several years. I don't know if you know this, but we've been in touch for several years, and we way back used to have kind of monthly calls to get updated and share news and deal flow and what we're seeing, and so yeah, we know you guys from afar. I know you guys from afar.
So let's try to reestablish this connection. It was
Would
great
love to
have you here, and we maybe would get you later back into the panel. Now I would like to introduce Ibrahim Alkurd to us from his company Lavaliere Capital Management. Also a very interesting personality, as I've seen also on the web. They're already in the crypto and blockchain market since various years, with also another company I remember, New Mine, which is a leader in blockchain mining infrastructure. And I've seen that you were Lavaliere Capital was voted now for several times as one of the top performing crypto hedge fund. Congratulations. I think you had also some interesting opinions now on the rise of decentralized exchanges and on DeFi, and I hope we will learn something from you also in this respect. So maybe introduce yourself, Ibrahim, and let us also know, why do you invest in blockchain technology?
Sure. Hi, Martin. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone that's tuned in. So I'll just take you way back. I started out in crypto back in 2015. I was arbitrage trading between exchanges. Back then, the opportunity was really good to make a lot of money very quickly. Arbitrage isn't the same as it used to be, but there's still some opportunity there. And then in 2016, I set up New Mine, which you've mentioned, and New Mine builds large-scale crypto mining operations, predominantly throughout North America, but we do have operations in Europe as well, and a small amount in Asia. And through the people I met through the mining company, we ended up setting up Lavaliere Capital, which has been around now for 2.5 years. And I view the blockchain space as where the internet was 20 years ago. Tons of opportunity, but there's also a lot of difficulties with navigating it. There's a lot of risks, and a lot of the companies that are around now are not going to be around in the next 5-10 years. So a lot of what we do is kind of really focusing on the companies that provide value. We are, very slightly different to Agada's, in that Agada, I guess, is more long-term with her investments or a firm. We're kind of more of an active trading firm. So a lot of what we invest in are the token. In fact, we can invest in venture capital style, but all of our investments today have been in tokens. We're very liquid in that we can move all of our funds into cash overnight, should we wish. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about me, but I do feel that there's tons of opportunity in this space. We're very lucky to have it, in our lifetimes. Unfortunately, I missed the internet boom, but we have blockchain instead, at least.
Yeah, interesting. So now you told you invest only in tokens and not in equity. I understand this. Right now, my other question would be, how do you invest also in new protocols, or is it more like also in established protocols to invest in blockchain infrastructure, or also in application providers?
Yeah, so we can invest in kind of venture capital style investments for equity, but we prefer tokens. So we do invest in the very early stages. Some of the protocols that we invested in, are very much in their infancy, and we're kind of quite private with our investments as well. Some of the firms would disclose they've invested in X company and this company and this one, but we kind of like to stay private, and we feel that that has worked out for us pretty good. I mean, as you mentioned, we're top performing crypto fund on multiple occasions, and I feel part of that, by not disclosing our investment positions, it kind of protects our secret sauce, if you like. So in terms of the biggest potential that there is in the market of blockchain, of course, it's predominantly in the financial market. In fact, thinking about it, blockchain hasn't really done much outside of the financial markets today. I know there's people working on genetics and courier tracking of inventory and whatnot, but really where blockchain has the biggest potential, which space it has the biggest potential to revolutionize, it's very much the financial sector. And this year, the end of this year and a lot of next year, it's been great, I believe, because we're seeing a lot of institutional players joining the space, and it's very different to 2017 in that 2017 was a lot of retail money, and right now we're seeing a lot of institutional money, which is bound to be good for the long-term health of the space. So I'm hoping that over the coming years we're going to see more blockchain applications, but it's still going to be predominantly focused on the financial sector.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And can you also reveal to us how big your portfolio or your fund is, how much capital you have invested?
Sure. So we don't disclose our cumulative AUM, but we have invested well into the millions. Our average investment size can be, anything 100,000 or far more than that. We had a recent investment which was 500,000. We're typically in the six-figure range in terms of our investments.
I have seen that your website is only accessible with where you have to be registered. So I understand you're right. It's also only for registered investors.
Yeah, so we're only open to accredited investors, and the reason we don't advertise on our website is we're running in the regulatory infrastructure that we've set ourselves under. We can't mass market, so hence why everything is very private, and we need to make sure that the people that we're speaking to are accredited investors. Otherwise, we can land ourselves in trouble for advertising to the general public. So,
who are typically your investors? You mentioned before now that you're seeing an increase in institutional money. Are you managing funds from family office, from private individuals, from institutions?
Yeah, predominantly from high net worth people, and then small amounts from some institutional players that we've seen interest from. So, 3 years ago, these institutional players were hardly present, but now we're definitely seeing a spike in interest from these institutional players. So it's definitely a good indicator for the long-term health of the space. But right now, I would say predominantly high net worth individuals are investors.
So probably, I mean, you before I ask the question, how many startups did you already invest? Is it startups you're investing into, or is it more established coins?
It's coins that we're invested into, but a lot of these coins are of startups. So not all of them, but a lot of them are. So in terms of how many we've invested in, a few dozen probably. We're not out. We're not out there taking people's money and allocating it to the top 100 coins by market cap. We're very selective in what we choose. A lot of these coins are worthless. They're not going to be around in several years' time. So we have to have a very extensive due diligence process. And we also like to ensure that the tokens that we're taking positions in, we can liquidate and move out with cash should we want to. Again, we're kind of very different to what Agada was talking about in terms of what they're doing.
So how do you find these tokens you're investing in or which you buy? Are people approaching you, or are you doing your due diligence and searching for them?
Yeah, we do get approached a fair bit by people, but we typically are the ones that find the projects. And a lot of those investments, they don't even know that it's our firm that's holding the positions in their tokens. So it's very, we're very private in what we do. So I think that, as I mentioned before, that's worked well for us. So yeah, there are tokens out there and projects that we haven't invested in, but they don't know that it's our firm that's taking that position.
So how big are the ticket sizes you're investing in if you choose a token?
Yeah, sure. So typically in the six figures that we like to invest. Some of these tokens, by six figures I mean 100,000, over 100,000, under a million. Some of these tokens, even if we wanted to do a bigger investment in, we can't, because there isn't that liquidity anyway. If you're looking at a market cap coin, a coin of 5-6 million market cap, there's only so much that you can take. There's only such a large position you can take before moving the market, unless you're going OTC. So I would say that's kind of where we're sitting for our average ticket size.
So what's the requirement for you? I mean, let's go maybe look a bit deeper into the due diligence. What requirement the token has to meet before you invest? You mentioned before you have to be able to liquidate it. Does it have to be on an exchange, or what's the?
Yeah, usually we like to get tokens that are tradable on a lot of exchanges, and then a lot of it comes down to the team. A lot of investing in general, if you look at most investors, the first thing they look at is the team. What are the credentials of the team? And that's why if you're a young entrepreneur and you don't have a track record, it can be quite difficult to raise. That's the obstacle that you have to try and work towards overcoming, by having your first successful company. So a lot of what we focus on is kind of the team, the market liquidity, the amount of exchanges that we can purchase the coins on, the tokenomics, whether these tokens have any true value. Most tokens don't. That's something that we really focus on. The tokenomic model is very, very important for us for our investments.
So I think this leads me to another question. Then now you mentioned the true value. I think that's a very interesting term now in tokens. How do you define this true value, or where do you see? Give us some examples maybe from tokens where you think they have a true value.
Yeah, sure. So, one of my favorite tokens personally is Ethereum, and I really like Ethereum because you can actually, use ERC20 tokens to build stuff on. A lot of these decentralized finance applications are being built on Ethereum. So Ethereum is something that has a lot of, value. The tokens where I don't like investment in them, I don't like investing in them, are ones where, it's essentially a pump and dump. It's the founders trying to sell their coins and make loads of cash and screwing over the investors. And unfortunately, we saw a lot of that happening with the ICO hype of 2017, and it really hurt the market. There were a lot of unethical players, and I think a lot of people are now far more cautious with what they're putting their money into in the crypto world, and that level of caution is good, and it needs to continue. So, a lot of it comes down to the ethics of the founders. Are the founders really interested in building a token and a product that is worthwhile and that's going to have true value? Or are they simply looking to, make some quick cash? And, usually it's a lot of these founders are looking to make some quick money, but, sometimes you do find these gems where they're genuinely invested in their product and the long-term applications of it.
I think I have already a bit asked you the question, but I want to dig a bit deeper. How do you find now the right coins for you? Are you also approached by promoters of coins or by sponsors of coins? Are you doing, or are you just, before you mentioned many projects or sponsors that don't even know that you're investing in your token? Explain us a bit more how also, let's say if we would have a project which thinks or which is convinced about it, so how can they approach it? Do they have any chances if they approach you, or is it just a completely, you know, from your side, you're looking for these tokens?
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's a project that they're raising, then we will definitely consider it. If they email us at info@lavalierecapital.com, what I was trying to say there is that typically when we're approached by a project, the caliber of that project is not necessarily as good as projects that we approach. So generally speaking, our investments have been in products that we found, but that does not mean that we're not open to exploring investment opportunities when someone reaches out to us. I mean, the crypto space is small, and I always encourage people to reach out. Even if we don't end up investing, then maybe I can connect you with someone that will, or someone that could help you launch your product. We're all in it. It's all in our best interest to work together to help the adoption and the maturation of this space.
I think that's quite interesting, and also in line with what Agada told us just before, that also her most promising projects are the ones they were looking for, and not projects which approach them directly. And I think that's an interesting learning also for investing, also potential entrepreneurs who listen to this. So they have really to be to get on the map, so that they are also found from the investors. Now, another question, I mean, region-wise, are you agnostic? Are you very open? Do you invest in projects from all over the world, or do you have certain preferences?
Yeah, so we don't have a preference. For us, it's more about the quality of the project as opposed to the location. We've invested with projects that are all over the world. We don't have a particular focus. For us, this is a very decentralized, distributed technology with developers from all over the world, and we like to have the same ethos with our investments.
Maybe also this question which I asked also already before, what do you want to see? You also responded it up to a certain extent, but I want to dig a bit deeper. What do you want to see in a company's product, and what do you want to see in a company's team? I mean, if you look at the token investment, also, do you consider the team of being of the same importance as if you invest into equity? What do you want to see there? How do you assess between team, product, and what are the most important qualifications they need to meet?
Yeah, so one of the things that I see, unfortunately, a lot of teams don't spend enough time on the tokenomics of their project, and this is the bit that you should not rush at all, because a lot of it is going to determine whether you hit what you're trying to raise or not. So I would always recommend kind of looking at the tokenomics of popular competitors, considering taking input from investors. You can easily change tokenomics given feedback. So once you go out there, if you're trying to raise as a project, don't go out there and hit up every single investor at once. Approach a small amount, get feedback, build on that, and then reach out to more people, because you only get one shot with a lot of these guys. So your first shot has to be your best shot. So if you're trying to raise, have a very methodological approach of, have a list of here are the 200 investors in the space. I'm going to approach 10. I'm going to get that feedback, build on that, and then approach 20, etc.
Interesting, thank you. Maybe also for you, Ibrahim, tell us what is your best project and what is your worst investment, or best investment, worst investment.
Yeah, so we can't disclose. So because of regulatory restrictions, we can't disclose individual investments. But we've had more good investments than we have had bad investments. Is what I can say. So that's why we've kind of had those great returns. Last year we did something like 80% net of fees. So far this year, as of the end of last month, we've done around 300% net of fees. But what I do really love about being a blockchain investor is kind of how innovative this space is, and you know, it moves so fast. So 1 year in the crypto world can be like 10 years in the traditional sector. So it's definitely a very exciting sector to be a part of. And I don't think a lot of us foresaw, you know, obviously no one foresaw that this pandemic was going to happen, but the coronavirus, you know, one of the positive things come out of it is that it's caused a lot of maturation in the digital asset world. And it would have maybe taken 3 or 4 years to get to where we are now. So, you know, this is one of the silver linings that's definitely come out of this pandemic.
That's interesting, and this I would also like, by the way, then from the other speakers, from Leeor and also from Agada, what she thinks about the coronavirus, the impact on blockchain investing. Maybe we have a few minutes at the end of the presentation, and we can discuss also this question, which obviously is an important question, especially at the current times. Maybe also for you, Ibrahim, a last question. How do you know or perceive Crypto Valley? Do you already have some connections with it?
Yeah, actually, I have a few friends that are part of the association, and I know you guys are doing a lot for the crypto world in Switzerland, and not just that, but also internationally. So, and I've also been to the Crypto Valley. So it's good to, it's important to have these associations, because a lot of the development of new technology happens through connections, and you know, you guys are definitely playing a part in that.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I think it was very interesting what we've learned from you, and also it's interesting, even though we almost asked the same question to Agada and to you. I mean, we see you're in a different field, I think, different aspects, and I had some good learnings. I wish you all the best also to you and your fund also in the future. Now, Leo from Blockchain Valley Ventures is also with us. We are door to door almost, and so it's good to have you here on our meeting. Maybe please explain us now a bit where Blockchain Valley Venture. How are you closer to Agada or to Ibrahim, and explain us a bit what you're doing. And then my question, please tell me why you invest in blockchain technology.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks very much, Martin, and a pleasure to be here with everyone today. So thanks for taking the time. Yeah, by way of background, I mean, BVV, Blockchain Valley Ventures, what we do is very much aligned more along with Agada and the iAngels approach, with the exception that we are a pure focused blockchain group, I would say. So we are fully dedicated to the technology and the opportunities that this presents. And I think the reason we do this is basically because we're so excited about it, right? There's so much happening, there's so much to offer. And really, we took the decision 2.5 years ago when we were setting up BVV to basically dedicate ourselves fully to the opportunities that this brings. And really within that, though, have really focused and segmented our niche within the industry. So unlike Ibrahim, who's more on the token investment side, we're very excited that that's happening. And I think Bitcoin prices a fantastic development for everyone and gets people excited about this space again. But we are ourselves not touching tokens and secondary market activities. We're pure private market activity and focused on early stage venture capital and later stage transactions in the space. And that's really our focus. And basically, you know, the reason why we got into this space was, I think, you know, as you know, Martin, and many people here from the Crypto Valley Association, I think one of the things that we have strongest here in Switzerland is obviously the financial center and the ecosystem, and a lot of the players who are, you know, instrumental to the adoption of this technology, whether we like it or not, happen to be situated around this vicinity in this valley. And I think that was really the main motivation to come from the traditional Swiss financial industry, as many of my partners have done, to really come in and be fully dedicated to bridging the traditional and emerging financial world, so to speak. And I think that's really our main focus on how we do that.
Yeah, I think Agada and Ibrahim told us before that still, I mean, fintech is probably the lowest hanging fruit in blockchain investing. And maybe tell us also, what is your opinion on the biggest potential for blockchain investments?
Yeah, look, and I think it's a shared view. So I think we're already drinking the Kool-Aid on this call, so to speak. More than 50% of the companies we track are fintech. And this is really focus one. I think what we separate out is really horizon two opportunities of fintech. So not necessarily a new digital bank, which is innovating and streamlining operational processes, but really what are the banks or infrastructure of the future when you don't need a bank, right? And I think the companies who are working on building that infrastructure and technology is really the focus of where we see, the venture capital investments are longer term, higher risk investments in the space, justify the time that we spend doing. And beyond that, I would say, at the end of the day, it comes down to data, information, security, privacy, all relates to information at some point and how we manage it. And I think for things which are not directly related to fintech, financial services, or crypto, it's really about how people are managing, securing information.
Do you invest in new protocols also, in blockchain infrastructure projects, in applications? You told us you're focusing only on blockchain now. Where do you situate yourself within this space?
Yeah, so look, we're agnostic in theory. In practice, I'll tell you, being a more plain vanilla VC in the blockchain space comes with certain strings and expectations of how things work. And it's worth noting that the industry is still very early stage in terms of the types of companies, the level of revenues that they're achieving, and the type of business models that they're operating. And I think with that, as a venture capital investor and the kind of more standard generic thresholds you have, becomes very difficult to look at things differently in this space with the mandate that we have. So to be very honest, we look at everything. We have done 9 out of 10 investments into business applications. And I think that's really where we feel more comfortable and are more able to really stand behind. I think what is that future horizon 2 opportunities of financial services, for example, and identify those pockets of opportunity.
Thank you. Can you tell us also how the size of your portfolio and how much capital you've invested?
Yeah, so we've done 10 investments, several of which we've doubled down on. So we've deployed just over 5 million into the early stage space. So typical ticket sizes are between 250 to 500K. We're actually in the process of raising our second fund to continue doubling down on the winners, so to speak, and get to the next level as the industry is maturing. But we're very much focusing on initially the seed Series A opportunities and now moving to the Series A, B opportunities over the next 2-3 years.
Perfect. And do you always act as lead investor, or are you also co-investing?
Yeah, so this is an important topic for us. We are technically a co-investment fund by choice, right? So we typically always insist on having co-investors. That doesn't mean that we won't lead, and obviously have done, I think most of our transactions, we either took a lead or co-lead role. So we're very open for this, but obviously we like to be in the game together with partners who are able to provide typically what is geographic diversity as well as strategic value add. So even here in Switzerland, one of our investments is Alkurd Trader, which is a Swiss fintech business and portfolio company of Credit Suisse Venture Fund. So these are the types of deals that we end up liking and really coming together with some of the strategics from the industry and bringing them into the, let's say, the bad world of digital assets and blockchain.
Mm-hmm. And also here for you, how is it? Do you look for startups, or do startups approach you and you invest into them? How is your process and your preference here? Yeah,
look, it's a very open topic, right? As a BVV, we are a venture fund, and we also do M&A and transaction advisory in the space. So our whole USP is that we know end to end. We track the industry, all the seed stage to late stage companies, and our whole idea is that we are deal makers and the kind of centerpiece of this ecosystem as a financial partner. And I think bringing that together, it's important that we know basically all of the operators from the early stage space all the way up to the later stage. So our outreach process is very proactive. We spend a lot of time engaging with the ecosystem around us. We use and the support of data information providers, companies who track this professionally as well. So we track up to 10,000 companies globally through the tools that we have, and it is definitely a combination of personal network, of course, on most of the deals we've done, we've been invited to co-invest with them, but certainly not out of scope or out of opportunity that people approach us. And I think it's more about knowing what's going on around you, and whether it's an investment today or in 2 years. That's been the case as well over the last 2.5 years. We certainly like to be involved and aware of what everyone is up to in this ecosystem.
And also for you, do you have some preferences regarding regions you're an investor, or are you all over the world?
Yeah, so we actually opened up our Singapore office. So most of my time now I spend in Singapore. Happen to be back in Switzerland now for the ski season, so to speak. But normally our focus really is on the European Asia connection. I think, the route between Switzerland as the crypto valley and the financial center, as well as Singapore doing many of the similar things in Asia, let's say excluding China. I think you have two dominant hubs which present a great opportunity to bridge many aspects of this ecosystem, which I think is unique, which is the financial ecosystem, as well as many of the more speculative players and participants who are part of this for the crypto upside opportunities. And these are all relevant parts of the industry, and we certainly like to engage with and be connected to everyone.
It's very interesting, and that's what we try here also to do also today. And I think that's how we see us as CVA, really try to connect people with just the personal intention to move the space forward, and not just promoting one company, but promote different companies and also different regions. Now, please also let me know a bit, what are you looking, if you look at the company you want to invest? The team, the product, how do you assess this?
Yeah, look, I think, we've already talked about the team, and I think it's obviously a fundamental aspect of it. But for me, really, what's the core differentiator is it going back to this topic of Horizon 2 opportunities. So it's more not something that we might see in the next 12 months as serious development, but really an evolution which we think is inevitable. So moving away from large infrastructures servicing many customers through centralized means, but really moving into, what does the world look like when people are able to, in a structured and trusted way, lend money to each other rather than going through an intermediary. And this is really where we see the opportunities. And I think the DeFi space is many things. I'm very critical of what's happening on that front as well. But I think the underlying momentum behind it, which is the enablement and facilitation of credit amongst people and peers, this is a positive development. And as that becomes more structured and matured, we certainly expect there to be 2 or 3 key winners that emerge from that, as it did with, let's say, the rise of Bitcoin itself, and the way that exchanges such as Binance, as Ibrahim mentioned, Agada mentioned, have done very well. And we think that there are pockets of opportunity within that underlying momentum shift as well.
Yeah, I have an interesting question also, which I've received from the public, and the question was, how do you consider intellectual property positions of a project when deciding to make an investment? Maybe Agada, you could afterwards also quickly respond directly to this question after.
Yeah. Look, IP, as I've learned, the more time I spend in this, in the early stage space and community, I think at the end of the day, these are technology businesses, and aside from the software and the code that's been developed to run applications, what are the real value and assets of a business? And we're going through several exits and discussions around this at the moment, and you see very clearly the importance of not only having IP, but having effectively protected that IP. And look, this looks very different depending on what part of the chain you're in, so to speak. If you're a blockchain protocol and infrastructure, it's obviously very different from a enterprise software front-end application that runs a blockchain on the back end for security purposes, and so to speak. So I think happy to follow up with that person and talk more about this. But at the end of the day, IP is one of the most, if not the most valuable asset in a software business, and that remains equally relevant in the blockchain space.
Agada, what do you mean to this, if may ask?
Well, I agree with Leeor that it's very important. And when you asked earlier what we're looking for in companies, I one of the things I said is that there needs to be a technological moat, or there needs to be significant innovation that is hard to imitate, but it's very different with with an equity company that is doing something in the infrastructure, the enabling technologies like custody, for instance, or cyber, versus an open source protocol, decentralized protocol. Obviously, a decentralized protocol that wants developers to come and develop on top of it and be part of the community and so on and so forth, does not really have protected IP in terms of patents and so on. So it differs from one type of investment to the other. There are companies that need to be IP protected, especially enterprise software companies, SaaS businesses that sell into larger companies or as their service. These would usually be equity investments, token investments. I see less of a patent issue. There needs something different, technology, something more scalable, something to be some other significant advantage.
Thank you. So, Leo, I wanted to come to your last question. I mean, you're based here in Crypto Valley in Switzerland, just at the heart of it now. Maybe your opinion, where do you see its potential?
Look, Martin, I mean, just as you said, I think, Switzerland has a unique role, both, in the financial industry and globally in terms of its approach to international trade. And I think that's what we're really about here when it comes to blockchain. So I don't think any company has been successful in just capturing a niche play in their own market. I mean, everything by default, the Coinbases, Binances, etc., in fact, have reached the scale and attained what they wanted to do, let's say, in facilitating, let's say, transactions in the way that they do. Many of the other protocols and so forth that are coming through will do things similarly, and they're set up in the same way. So really, I mean, Crypto Valley, I think, is a great base for creating opportunities and bringing people together. But ultimately, I mean, this is not a big enough market to actually reach a critical mass unless you're purely focused on the B2B space. And if you look at where the adoption is of blockchain and digital assets on the B2B front, it is difficult to reach that. And then, in practice, I think going forward, there's a reason why you guys are also looking globally and trying to be that pioneer of bridging ecosystems. And I think that's very much the mindset and opportunity. I mean, this is decentralized technology, and the whole purpose and point of it is to manage things in that way. And I think that's very much in line with the values here, and certainly how we see ourselves as a Swiss-based, but very much globally focused venture firm.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, what is maybe not yet discussed here, but also for the other participants, it's interesting. I think in Switzerland, without now becoming too much geographical, because I know we have a global audience, but still, I think it's important to mention that from the beginning of the coming year, 1st of January 21, we will have a very solid framework here in Switzerland regarding crypto assets. Yes. So I think, I mean, the digital paper of value is now something which is broadly accepted and protected. And I think that's a very important step. Regulatory clarity, that people know where we can. I think this is anyway something which Agada mentioned it before, and you mentioned it, and Ibrahim, if we talk about DeFi, etc. I mean, all these wonderful projects we can have, but the legal framework is not ready to accomplish it. And so I think even if technically we would have some wonderful solutions to provide to the people, still we are in a very regulated market, and we all, I mean, especially also the three of you, we are here for accredited investors, which obviously it's quite a high threshold, and which is also difficult, let's say, for simple people to invest in very interesting projects. And I think, and I'm happy that here in Switzerland, by the way, unanimously it went through Parliament, this law here, without any voice of opposition. So I think it's something very interesting and will have an impact. This leads me to the last question. I think we could open the forum so that all participants here are visible. I have one thing. I mean, we talked about now, or I explained about the situation here in Switzerland. I had a question from one of the attendees of our meeting. How is it? Do you for you? Do you also assess U.S. projects, or is it? I mean, we have still lots of unclarity in the U.S., which. Where we know, I mean, it can have very negative impacts. So how is it for you? How do you see, and do you invest in the US with blockchain technology, or don't you? This will be the first question. I won't ask it again. And then the second question, maybe which you could also respond. We discussed it briefly. Now we're in this sad situation of coronavirus. Sad. I mean, it's not something probably we have to judge as good or bad. It's just here. It's here to stay, at least now for the next few months. How, and we have seen, I mean, the financial markets have been turmoil and changed. Some company gained a lot, other one lost a lot. And how do you see the impact of the coronavirus on our industry?
So I'll answer the first question because I've already mentioned about Corona, so I'll let the other guys take care of that. But as a US-based hedge fund, there are if the project, the crypto project, the blockchain project, whatever it is complying with US laws, then there are no implications for us to invest in it. The issue is that the US has been very ambiguous and quite strict on crypto projects, and to a certain extent rightfully so, because they're trying to protect the interests of investors. But because of this stringent requirements to operate in the US, it means that a lot of crypto projects have chosen other jurisdictions and parts of the world to operate in, a lot of Europe, Middle East and Asia. So there are less projects to invest in the US for sure. But if you're going to operate in the US as a crypto project, as long as you're complying with the laws, there are no issues. It's only when you try and bypass the laws that problems are going to come, and you're going to scare away investors. So just stick to the laws, and this will be the best thing for the long-term health of your company. I've already commented on what I think the coronavirus has done for the space, which I think it's been very good for the maturation of the space. But I'll let Agada comment on that if she likes.
Corona. I don't know. I think it's a bit early to say. Obviously, we're witnessing a bull run. I don't necessarily know that it's attributed solely to Corona. There are many other factors that work on it, aside from the pandemic. I do think that the injection of enormous amounts of capital and the printing of billions of dollars, drove people to look for assets that are uncorrelated or unaffected by it. Bitcoin being one of them, and I think it maybe contributed to the growth in Bitcoin. There are other contributors, the halving event, and the institutional players coming in, and so on. So overall, it seems to have had a good effect. I think also the fact that people are getting used to technology maybe more than in the past. They're working remote. They're getting used to Zoom. Even people, maybe other generations are getting used to being more technological, doing shopping online, ordering their paying online for things. I think that maybe contributes to better adoption of crypto and other means of payment. So, I mean, I would assume that it has a positive effect. I'm not sure that all of this recent bull run is attributed to Corona.
Yeah, I mean, not too much to add. I think on Corona side, I think it's been well captured. We'll just say on the US, I mean, obviously I have many different perspectives on this, because especially now in the DeFi space, I think most of the projects and companies and momentum which are moving mountains, let's say, in this space, are either Asia or US based. And I think there's huge opportunities there. One of the bigger challenges you mentioned, Martin, was around regulatory topics. And I think this has been one of the bottlenecks from things really exploding, even more so than they have been this year. And I think that's, really, even for us as a legacy kind of Swiss-based fund manager, advising out of a Luxembourg vehicle. I mean, we don't even have, that's a legacy problem, nothing to do with blockchain, but we don't even have the right to invest in US companies due to tax treatment of this fund structure that we run. And I think these are some of the challenges that you have, trying to adapt, very traditional fund models and fund structures that you have in Europe in the venture space to capture global market opportunities. But definitely would never write off or rule out the US and their opportunity here. And once they do eventually figure out how they will regulate this space and actually do things their way, I'm sure there will be another frontier of opportunities opening up.
Thank you, all the three of you. Now, I thought before it was the last question, but it was not. I know we run late and we'll be finished soon, but maybe just give me 2-3 words or phrases. What did you learn tonight from the other speakers?
One thing that's very apparent is it's actually quite a tough question to finish on, but how different the other two funds operate to us. But I think that's very good, because diversity is important, and different people need to invest differently and hit different angles of the market. So I'm glad that I've connected with the other speakers. And yeah, I'll say that's it. That's the main thing I picked up on. Do I have to say more, or can the other guys help me out?
I think, Ibrahim, I'll help you out here and say, from my side, my biggest takeaway is that it was possible to do a 300% return during this year. So I think I need to really reevaluate where and how I'm spending my time, because I think, as bullish as I am on the space, I don't think our venture portfolio is going to achieve quite the same returns this year. So that's a good takeaway for me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, DeFi has definitely been a big factor in that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can beat it next year, but it's a high target to beat.
Well, yeah, my takeaway maybe from this discussion, and it's always the feeling that I have after these panels, is that even after 2018 and 2019, which were very difficult years for the industry, there are people that are not new to this, that that overcame these years and are still here and still believe in this and still are bullish on investing and still have a thesis and an agenda, and happy to see that.
Thank you. I think for me, my learning was that, I mean, as also Ibrahim told it, very different approaches to invest, still very convincing, all of you. And I think we just are really, and probably this coronavirus was a catalyst into the new world, which started already 30, 40 years ago with the internet, but which was kind of the surface. It took many years to go really to infiltrate society and also behavior of people. This happened now with these kind of devices we have at hand now. And probably the next few years, this trend will go on and will become even more important. Basically, the digital transformation will touch many points of our personal lives, and I hope and I think we all should support a technology which gives freedom to the people, which is decentralized, also in a solid way, systems which are also resilient enough to absorb shocks, and which gives freedom to the people. And with this, I would like to close our event today. I'm very happy that you were willing to participate, and I thought it was really great what we have been able to learn from you. Thank you very much, and I hope we keep in touch, and I hope that we'll soon also have the opportunity to meet each other in person. Thank you very much appreciated.
Thank you,
Thank you
Martin.
very much, Martin.
Thank you very much.
All right,
See you
thanks.
later.
Bye.
Nice to meet everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks for all who listened to us. I hope you enjoyed it. Come again. We try to do this more often, and all the best, and Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.